Right, so in this video we're going to continue working on this layout. We will cover the next two sections, meaning this one and also hopefully all this one, okay? We will learn some new ways of layout, of positioning items using the floating layout, okay? As well, we will again use the absolute positioning for moving this around. We will play with the backgrounds and do more and more stuff. This is the final design we are trying to get to, okay? Last class, or last video, we finished the top part of the document. Let me open it on brackets so you can check it out. So we finished the header, right? And we are happy with the header. One nice thing in brackets that I normally do is collapsing the content that I don't want to see in this moment. As you can see, we have a bunch of arrows here that will just collapse anything you click on. So if you want to collapse all the items that are inside the header, you just click on this arrow here and it will just for one moment hide or collapse this until you click that again or click here on these points, okay? But I want to start diagramming or writing the new HTML, so I just collapse that so it doesn't get in the way, right? Let's take a look at our wireframe, what we are going to be working on today. So last class, let me just zoom this a little bit. Last class we finished with this box, okay? So today we are just going to make this new box. Let's inspect this box. As you can see, I have a dash line here that covers for the background, okay? And as you can see, the background is overflowing its container. The container is this blue circle here, this blue square, sorry. Come on. So this is the container we are going to start doing. And inside that container, we have a background image that is overflowing the container. Then that's all we have to do for this image. And then we have to add these two elements. Could be headings, paragraphs, wherever you want to. And then just style them using CSS and position them in the correct position by using CSS. Okay? So let's start. First, we need a box. Okay? All these blue boxes are sections of the website. Okay? That's why I'm using the section container or element. Remember, these are new words in HTML5. They are just containers, just boxes, such as div. I could pretty much create a div and give it a class of, I don't know, section as well or anything, okay? But it's better to use the semantic new HTML5 elements to give the page more meaning, right? So section, I will give it an ID of top main, because it's like the main part at the top of the home page, okay? So that will be just the blue box, and inside that box I'm going to create three elements, okay? I'm going to create a box for the background, and I am going to create these two texts, okay? So the first one for holding the background will be a simple div, okay? Let's give it a class so we can select it later on. It will be class inner or inner BG for inner background, wherever you want to. In my case, it makes sense to name it inner BG because it will hold an inner background of that container. What else do we need? Some text. We could use headings, paragraphs, divs, whatever you want. Let's use headings because they are more easy to select. So let's create an H1. That will be like the main title, right? That has to say the material space. So the material space. And we also have to create an H2. That will be like the subtitle here. Let's write a text. I will write it in a small case. And later on, we are going to change the case using CSS only, right? So opening of our new showroom. And that's pretty much it. That's all I need for that section. So it's not that complicated, at least the HTML, okay? I will be able in CSS to select this div or this one or this H1 or this H2 and move them or style them accordingly, okay? So can we move to the CSS or should I wait a little bit? Okay, I will just click pause. Explanations, and we were talking about viewport, width and height units. So the viewport refers to this part of the browser, okay? It's not the window because the window takes into account, or the whole browser window also uses the URL and this tab titles and stuff, right? So the viewport is only the container, but the viewable area, okay? This is of most importance for us designers, because when we start dealing with mobile phones and mobile screens, the navigators in those devices treat the viewport or have different viewport sizes. So we can rest assured that whenever we write that 100 BW stands for viewport width, and will fill the whole width of the viewport, okay? So that's another unit we're going to use. And then we have some boxes inside it, okay? I didn't finish my draw, but you get the idea. So let's start making the CSS for this. Can I move to the CSS now?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with the top main, okay? Let's give it some style so we are able to see it right here, okay? It should be around here. How do we select it? I move into my styles. This is where we left last class. So I will just write a comment that we are starting with the section top main or something. Just a comment for me to see that right here I'm starting that section, okay? So how do I select all this wrapper, this blue square that we have here, right? How do I select it or style it from the CSS? It has an ID of top main. So I have to write hashtag top main, right? Let's give it by default, it will take the width of its container. Who's the container of this section? You can see it quite clear because you can see that it's inside this one. So this is a container, the wrapper, okay? And the wrapper has a default or a maximum width of 1200 pixels. So the default width of this top main will also be 1200 pixels. If it doesn't have anything inside it, the height will be 0 and we won't be able to see it. But we do have some stuff right there. So just by doing that, and in fact I don't even need this, if I refresh my web page, I will start seeing the H1 and the H2, right? There's another div there, this one. It's invisible because it doesn't have any content inside, so it's with 1200 pixels and height 0. Okay, that's why we are not able to see it. But we are watching, or we are actually seeing the H1 and the H2 right there. Okay, so let's start messing with the container, the top main. That's why we selected it, right? So top main, let's change its height to 40 BW. So 40% of the viewport's width will be assigned as the height of this element. That means as the viewports gets smaller, the height of that element will also get smaller because it's 40% of the width of the window of the browser, if you want to think of it like that, okay? Let's give it a horrible background color as we normally do just to check it out, okay? And with those two values, we are able to see that wrapper, okay? It has a specific height. It has the default width of 100% of its container, which is a wrapper, so 1200 pixels. That's why we have this space here and here, right? If I start making the browser smaller, you can see that the height is also getting smaller, okay? We don't want it to be super small because as you can see on the final design, we do want it to make it a little bit smaller, but there's a point where we don't want it to get smaller than that, okay? So we have to prevent that from happening. Right now, we are just saying take the 40% of the viewport's width. That means it will get smaller and smaller. But what if we add a restriction? You can get as high as you want, but you cannot get less height than, let's say, 400 pixels. So we can specify a mean height of 400 pixels. That will leave that window shrink up to 400 pixels height, but not less than that, okay? So it can grow as high as, if we watch this in these super huge displays that we have here, maybe the height will be, I don't know, if the width of this display is 2000 pixels, then the height will be 40% of that, okay? But if this starts getting smaller, then we won't let it get something like this, small, small, and small, okay? So let me refresh, and you will see that it starts getting smaller, but there's a specific point where it doesn't get any smaller than that, okay, or any shorter than that, right? So that's okay with that container. Let's move to the next one because we don't need to do anything else in this one. We want it to grow or shrink just like that to fill the space. That's perfectly fine. Now let's move to the next one. Who's the next one? This one, inner BG. We could select just the class. How do we select or create a class here? Point inner BG or dot inner BG. We could do it like this. I like to restrict the selectors because if for some reason later on I also use this inner BG in some other container, I don't know, maybe I do or maybe I don't want to select it. Anyway, I'm going to restrict that selection to only the divs with class inner BG that live inside something with ID top main. So how do we restrict that? We said not all the inner BGs out there, just the ones that are inside something with ID top main. So we are restricting the selection to only those items that are inside something that has an ID of top main. Right? What do we want to do with this one? Well, we want to apply a background. We want to make it grow and overflow the parent. Remember, this one should be quite huge. And we also would like to move it around and center it in the viewport by using a position absolute. Okay? So let's do all that. First of all, let's give it a background color of a horrible blue color. Will I see something? Will I see some blue color if I refresh the web page? No, because this div doesn't have anything inside it. So it's collapsing to 0 pixels height. Okay? So even if I try to make it blue, I don't see any difference. If I inspect this, let me do this a little bit more. If I inspect that top main, you can see the size of the div inner is 1200 pixels width because it's the size of the container, 0 pixels height because it doesn't have any height or anything inside it. So let's give it a height of 100%. That means this div will try to grow as much as its container. Who's the container of that div? The top main. And the top main is already dealing with how much it should grow up or how few pixels do we allow him to shrink and stuff like that, right? So if we just do this, then this div here will always be 100% of its parent, okay? So now we will be able to see the blue one, or we should. Where are you, girl? So did I save this? I think I did. And it's still 0%. Why? It's a div and a height of 100. I didn't put it here. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. So here I didn't wrote any hyphen, so I'm not selecting this one. You can see it if you select it. There's no rule here being applied, right? So that means there's something wrong with my selection. Now if I do it, now it works. And what we are seeing is the blue in front of the red box. Okay, that's what's going on. If we change this to an RGB, I don't know, a blue, yes, semi-transparent, we will be able to kind of see around it. So that's the mix between 50% of blue and all red. That's the color you get. Looks awful. I will erase it. You get the idea, hopefully. Now, instead of assigning a background color, let's assign an image as a background, right? Because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to have this background image. Which one? This one that says, not this one, but this one. New showroom, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's the image it should have as a background. So let's put it. Instead of background color, let's put a background alone. This is a shorthand for many background properties. We can specify a color and an image as well. So it will try to apply the color and also the image. Let's just apply an image as a background. So just URL. We have to tell it where is the background image we want to apply. Now pay attention to this part. My CSS is inside this folder, right? My image is inside this folder. So if I'm writing a rule here that should find an image, I have to tell it, go down one directory, go down one level, and here you will find a folder called img, and inside that folder you will find the image I need you to add. So how do we do that? We write .. that will go down one level, one directory. As you can see now, it's listing me the content of the parent folder of where the CSS file is. That is the CSS folder itself, an image folder, and an index.html. I want to get inside this one, right? So enter. And now I'm getting listed all the images that are in there. I just need the one that starts with new showroom, blah, blah, blah. That's all I need. So that's my background URL. That's my background image. Now, by default, the background image will be presented at its own original size. If you check that image, the size is 3000 pixels width. So it's a super, super huge image, okay? If we display it at a 100%, and we are just watching it through the eyes of the small window that is a wrapper that has only 1200 pixels wide, we will only be seeing something like this part of the image, right? That's what actually is going to happen. So if you just save this and refresh, you are just watching that small upper left part of the image because the image is super huge. It's much bigger than this container, okay? There's a nice trick there. We can change the background size to cover, and it will try to fit inside the container. So now we do have the image there, looks okay. Because it's covering this one, but remember, we don't want this to be the size of its container. By default, the width of this element will be the width of the parent, right? 1200 pixels, but we want it to be bigger. We want it to be how much big? The full size, the full width of whichever screen this web page is being opened in, okay? So we want to change its width to 100 viewport width, right? This will make it as big as the viewport. The problem is that because this div is still inside this one, it will start rendering inside this one, and the result will be something like this. So you can see that the div is really bigger, but it's starting here, okay? And it's getting as big as the container. But since we are starting rendering right here, because it's inside this container, what's the name? The top main div, then the size is the size of this projector size, but it's overflowing the right part of the container, and that's fine. We want to move it a little bit to the left, right? How much? Well, remember how we used to center thing with position absolute? So that's what we are going to do in these three lines. First, we change its position to absolute. Now, if we do that, what happens is that we get a super, super huge image again. What happened? Remember, whenever you change something to position absolute, it will grow or align itself to its first container that had a position declared. Any position except static. So what will happen is that this inner BG div will say, okay, because I now have a position absolute, I will grow and align myself to the first container I find with a position declared. So the first container it finds is this section, right? So it goes on and asks, hey, you top main, do you have a position declared? No, we don't. Then it will just ignore him. Say, okay, then I won't align to you anymore. Then it goes to the wrapper and it asks the wrapper, and in the wrapper we also don't have any position declared. It goes to the body, we don't have, because it must align with somebody, it ends aligning with the top, with the body, sorry. So if we change, for example, something like top 0, instead of leaving 0 pixels here, it will leave 0 pixels from the top, okay? From the body, sorry. If we add something like left 0, it will just align to the body. We don't want that. Remember, most of the time when we use a position absolute, it's because it's inside some box and we want it to align to that box. And it's exactly the case. We want to align this background inside this top main. So the best solution is to what? Give this one a position, right? Any position except static. If you specify a static position, then nothing will change and it will again be, it will again be here. So other one, which other position we can use that it's not too complicated and won't mess around with the position where that item is? Relative. So this is pretty common stuff. We make some position absolute and start moving around inside a container with position relative. Most of the time we are going to be using it like this. Okay? Now what you will see is that is now inside it, nothing has changed yet, but now we have a position absolute, meaning we can move it and center in the way we know. Remember how do we center stuff? Horizontally. So we need to move it to the left 50% and then move it back with a transform. Translate x, in this case, minus 50%. Now let me show you how that looks. That's fine, okay? So this div here, this inner VG, it's overflowing its parent, which is the top main. We can control the way we see overflow items. So this is the wrapper, this is the container of this div. This div is overflowing him, so he can say, how would I treat my overflow? If I have an overflow, I will always hide it. That means even if the image overflows it, we cannot see that overflow. But it can say it could be visible. That way we are able to see it. Visible is the default option, so we don't even need to specify it. That will be the default thing that it's doing. Right? Can I go on or should I wait a little bit? So far so good, so we have that one in position. Now we are going to move these boxes also with a position absolute, and that will be the easiest thing to do, okay? Look, let's just change inside the top main. If you look closely, inside the div with top main we have an H1 and an H2, right? So how do we select it? Select them. We can say something like top main H1, right? And we can do something like top main H2. We could select both of them if we want to, because they both share some properties. They both share the same font and the same font color, and I think that's all they share. They are both center. So we could wrap this by selecting in two of them. I will just write, because it's not much, I will write the two of them. This one I will give him first a horrible background color of red, and this one will have as well a horrible background blue color. Okay? Now we are able to see them. We are not able to see them because they have a position relative by default, and they are behind my absolute position div, which is this one. So let's use both of them. Let's just give them a position absolute. Now we will be able to look at them, right? Because now these three boxes, this one as well as these two, have a position absolute. So they will be one in front of the other in the order they were entered here on the HTML. Okay? So now we should be able to see them. I am just seeing the second one because the red one is behind it, right? But now we can move them a little bit. Let's, for example, change the font size of this one. Let's say 60 pixels. And let's change its color to white. And also the font weight to 300. Well, let's do this at the end. So we have that one there. As you can see, I increased the font size, changed the color. Now I'm able to see it. Doesn't look quite like this one. Maybe it should be a little bit bigger. And maybe the font weight is really different. Here I'm using a super bold font type, but I want a more lighter font. Remember when we went to Google Fonts, we select different font weights? If you don't remember that, you can check that here. This is the font we brought. The font name is Lato or Lato, and these are the weights we can use. By default, it's using the 400. If we want a lighter font, we know we have the 300 there, so we can change the font weight to 300. Let me show you how that looks. So that will change the font weight to a more readable 300. Looks better, okay? Let's also play with the second one. So the second one has a font size of, let's say, 35. I don't really remember the size, but I'm just playing with it. It also has a color white, right? It also has a font weight of 300, not pixels. Font weight is a unitless value, okay? And it must be on uppercase, right? So we can change that on CSS as well, because that text must be uppercase, as you can see here. And we can change that with the property text transform uppercase. This will make this text uppercase, even if the HTML is in small caps. Right, so we have them there. They look quite okay, but we want to make them different size and in different position, right? So we can play with that. Let's make this H1 smaller so we have a break between material and space, right? So instead of, right now it's growing to show all the content in one line, but we can specify a different width. Remember, the width of this container of the wrapper is 1200. So maybe the size we want is something around 400 or something more. We can check that. Right now, this size, what I will normally do if I want a pixel perfect, I will take this image to Photoshop and then just use the rulers and take the correct sizes. Right now, I'm just trying to give up an approximation of the position and sizes. So not pixel perfect, but it will work, okay? So I just changed the size. I want it a little bit bigger because I do want these two words to fit in one line. So maybe 44, a little bit bigger. That's right, that's enough. Now I will center the text inside it, right? How do we center it? Because it's, yes. So we can use a text align center. Okay, this will center the text. Let me show you how it looks like, right? So now we have a center text and a specific width, a font weight, color, font size, blah, 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 position absolute, and that's it. Let's change this one as well, because that line we wanted to break in hour. So let's play with the width of that one, maybe 300 pixels. Let's try that out. Yeah, but it must be a little bit bigger than that, maybe 320. Yeah, that looks okay. And I will also center the text. So we have these two boxes there with the correct font, color, size, etc. We just have to move them a little bit to be on the correct size, or on the correct position at the end. Okay? So let's keep this one. Since we already have an absolute position, then we can play with the top, left, right, bottom spaces of that item between him and his parents, right? Or their parents. So let's play with the top attribute by giving it, I don't know, 100 pixels, and it will start pushing that one 100 pixels from the top of the container. We can also play with the left value. I don't know, maybe 200, that's too much. Maybe 120. That's starting to look okay. Maybe this one should be an 80. And if you don't want to go by trial and error, trying numbers and trying numbers, you can play with the properties right there and change the positions visually. What I normally do is right-click on the element, click Inspect. This will bring a window like this. And you can see here the properties that I'm playing. You can click on them, for example, top, and start messing around with your up and down arrow keys, move them, and just put it really wherever you want to. Let me move this a little bit to the top, this one a little bit to the bottom, so we have more space, because I do want to see these white spaces there. Okay, I cannot move it, but you get the idea. So you can move this wherever you want, or play with the left value, and just put it really wherever you want to. If I refresh the web page, I will lose these changes. So just take into account or note these numbers you finally got. I will do the same with the second one. I just select the other box and I start playing with its top value. Let's put it more or less there. And if its left value, where am I? Here. Something like this. The problem with this, or the bad side of giving it fixed sizes and position, is that when you start getting smaller, then it will look a little bit weird. So maybe we can play with the percentages of the width of the container. So look what I'm going to try out. Instead of playing with the top left in fixed units as pixels, I can play with it in units with viewport width. So let's play with it a little bit, maybe 4 viewport width. But now as I start moving this will also move a little bit to the top because the viewport width is changing. Okay? So that gives us more adaptability to this kind of stuff. So I like it there. The left part will be also maybe something in the line of 9. And that you can see that now it's moving that box a little bit better than the other one. Can you see the difference?
Yes.
So maybe it's better to use those dynamic fonts that depend on the browser's window rather than fixed pixels units. Okay? So when I'm happy with the result, I just copy these two values and paste them here. Well, instead of those other ones, right? So those values are the top and left values I want to leave in this H1. Let's do the same for the other one, the H2. So instead of having fixed values, I will play it with this, maybe something like this. Maybe you can play with decimal points and all that. And now it's starting to move. Okay, we have a problem there. Okay, so maybe the top part, we don't want to play with it just like this because we have a super, since we are getting that number higher and higher, but maybe instead of playing with the, maybe the top part of this second one will be, this one will be fixed. I'm not a huge fan of that. Maybe I will put those in a separate container, but for now let's just leave it like this. We deal with this problem later on. We will deal with this later on. Right now I want to finish just the desktop view of it. So I will just copy this property or check what it was at the end. It was a 20 and a 14. So top 20. You can make some calculations and we will check that later on. And a left of 14 BW, something like that. Now if I refresh the web page, they will be there and they don't move anymore. So now I'm happy with the position. I will make one final change to this one. I will change its line height to 1. So the line height is the space between the lines, okay? By default, you can specify it in pixels. I don't know, 150 pixels. It will be super huge, right? So, I don't know, 80 pixels. It will start adding more and more space here between the lines. You get the idea, okay? You can specify it in pixels. You can specify it in values. Just the one will be one simple line. If you write a 2, it will be a double space between the lines of this box alone. You can have a, I don't know, 0.7, then they will start to collapse. 0.5 looks horrible, but you get the idea. Normally, we just have number 1, 2. If you don't use it, by default, you can see we have more space there assigned by the user agent. So again, we are kind of overriding the user agent styles by just writing this. It's starting to look more or less okay. I really don't like this thing. I will just move this top to temporarily 300 pixels. Let's say 200 pixels, 240. And that's at least holding up a little bit better, okay? So now that I'm more or less happy with the result, I can remove these backgrounds, this one and this one. And now it looks more or less okay. Okay, we have that background. At least it's work for more or less up to this size of screen. In smaller sizes, it starts to look horrible and we even lose that image altogether. So maybe in resolutions smaller than this one, we will move this background a little bit more to the left or align it to the right, or I don't know, make some changes. For now, let's just move to the next part, okay? Can I go on to the next part or should I wait? Go on? Okay, so we finished that section. Let's move to the next one. We finished this one. Let's do this one. This one takes a little bit more of work and trial and error, okay? What we are going to do is, let me just try to select that. This one. So we will have two boxes like this. Look closely. We have one container, which is the blue one. That's the container for the whole section, right? So that blue one holds the whole section. Then inside the blue one, we have two big columns, these green ones, and inside of those we have these small boxes as well. And I could go on drawing boxes, because here we need another box, and for this one we need another box, but I think you get the idea of what I'm doing, so I won't draw any more boxes right there. Okay, let's just leave it there, somewhere there. So let's start with the blue line. So we should go to our HTML. I already finished this section, I can collapse it. Let's move to the next one. It's also a section, right? I don't know if I have to give it a class. I don't know if I want to change it somehow. This one I did change its height to 40 BW, remember? But this one I don't want to grow it or shrink it. I want it to grow as much as it needs to display these items it has inside, okay? So I won't move anything there. And inside that one, let's write these two boxes that we need, these two green ones. So this one that I'm moving, and the other one, which is this one here, right? So those will be just divs, normal divs. We do want to change the width and the position of those divs, so let's give them a class. I will give them a class of 1/2, because they will be of 1/2 size of the container, okay? So later on we can just play with these classes and assign them and change the layouts however we want. If you check the final design, we have some 1/2 columns. Right here we have one that could be 1/3, right? Here we have smaller ones. If you go to products, you will see that we have more columns there. No, okay, 3 again. So we can play with that, just whatever we want to. Let's start with the half part of them, okay? So we need 2 of them, sorry. We need 2 of them. Each of them, or both of them, will have the class 1/2, because the size of those should be half of their container, right? What's the container size? What's the size of this section? The size of the wrapper. What's the size of the wrapper? I draw it there, 1200 pixels, okay? So we want this to be 600 pixels wide, more or less, and this one as well. Let's do that, okay? And let's name it, I don't know, I want to tell them apart somehow, so I will just give this one the class last as well, because this will be the last column of that section, if you want to think of it like that, okay? So they both have the class 1/2, and this one has as well the class last. Now let's go to the CSS. First of all, let's try to watch them. So 1/2, I will give it a background color of blue. Are we going to see anything on the screen?
No.
Why not?
Because
they are empty. They are empty, so they are flat, 0 pixels height. So we won't be seeing anything here. I don't know if you can see the red that pops in. That means we didn't erase one color there. I didn't erase. There should be a red there. This one in the top main. Now it doesn't pops out. And let's just play with. Okay, so we don't see them. If we had some content there, then we will be able to see at least that one. Okay. But since we don't have anything, then we are not able to see them. Let's add what we need to add inside them. So inside this left box, we still need 2 boxes, right? These 2 green ones. They live inside the left box. That means they live inside this div, right? So inside there, we will create another div, another box. Since this one will be 100% of its container, let's give it the class of full width, and we need 2 of them, right? So I'm just trying to follow my wireframe. My wireframe told me I needed a huge container. That's this section. Then inside that I saw 2 boxes. Those are this one and this one. And inside the first one, the left one, I have another 2 boxes, which are these 2. Right? Now inside this one, what do we need? Which box is this one? Is this one here, right? So we need what? An image and two kinds of text, right? Could be also a heading 1 and heading 2. Could work. So let's do that. We need an image with a source image. This one is the one that says Kupalo square. This one. Let's write an H1, right? That will be the title that says Kupalo. And then H2, it says hand-blown glass pendant lamp. And then in the second one, we need more or less the same thing, right? With a different image and a different text, but the layout will be more or less the same. So let's just add here an image. Image. This one is what? Can. An H1 that says can. And an H2 that says black pottery pendant lamp. Okay, so this is my main container. This is my left part that has two boxes inside it. And on the right part, what do we need? Just the image and the text, right? Just like here, okay? So inside the right one, we are going to add an image, which is La Trufa. Should be there in images. Yes, La Trufa square. We need an H1 that says La Trufa. And we need an H2 that says hand-blown glass series. Yes, so that's all I need for that section. Now we get to the weird, complicated part of the CSS, which is how do we make that layout? It's not a simple one because we have some boxes inside boxes. We want some boxes to be beside or in between each other or beside each other. So we need to make some changes there. Can I go on or should I wait? Wait, okay. So right now, how does this look like? If you refresh, you will see the blue one as I was drawing there. And then we have the other one that has a blue background as well with the huge image and the text. As you can see, the text is, since they are H1s that also work like block elements, they are occupying this position at the bottom of their predecessor, okay? And we are going to move all that, okay? First of all, let's start from the outer parts to the inner ones. So let's start with these ones, the 1/2 guys. They should be, as I draw here, 50% width, and they should live on the same row, one at the side of the other one, okay? One at each side of the container, which is the section. So how do we do that? Let's go in here. In fact, we can change this 1/2, right? Let me change the second one, which has the last class in it, and I will change its background color to red so we can tell them apart. So we should have something like the blue one and the red one, okay? Just to tell them apart. Now, we want the 1/2 one not to grow. By default, they grow to fill the space of their container, right? The container of this 1/2 is the section. So they are growing to the size of the section of the container. We don't want that to happen. We want them to be smaller or narrower. What we can change is the width, right? If we change their width to 50%, what will happen is now they are half of the size of the container. So 600 pixels wide, okay, each of them. Then we have this one, right? Are we okay? Now let's learn a new property called float. Float will allow us to display two items on the same row if they fit. They do fit because each of them is 50% width of the container. That means both of them can perfectly fit and snugly and flush fit inside the container. But we have to tell them that they can float between each other or side by side. I will show you this video that explains the floating property. Is super nice, I think. You have the link on the PowerPoint that you already have on Blackboard. There's a link for that video somewhere there. Should be, yeah, no. Yeah, here. So you have the link there. I will just play this, pause this video and play the video here in class for you, okay? So what we want to do is make this div float. Sorry, this one should float, and this one should float as well. We already have a selector that selects both of them, which is the one half selector, right? So we have them right here. So we can write here float left. And this will magically put them, since they do fit inside the container, this will put them side by side. Okay? So now they are living on the same space. If they didn't fit, if we set the width of each one to 51, they don't fit anymore because two of these make for 102 pixels or 2% of the size. So they won't fit, and this will move this one to the bottom. If we make them smaller, they will fit. Okay, try to be there. As you can see, the image is overflowing the container. We could change I will erase it, so don't copy it, but we could change the overflow to hidden, and now you can see the idea of these two divs floating together side by side with a width of 30% of the container, which is in this case the section. Okay, so let's move that back to 50. We could also play with the sizes in fixed units. That's not the best thing to do, but maybe when you're starting, it makes sense to play with fixed units. So we know the container is 1200 pixels, right? So the size could be 600 pixels. That's exactly the same. Nothing will change. If you write this or write this, it's exactly the same. Okay? Now, we could play, if we want to leave some space between them, we don't want them to be flush to each other, maybe we can add a margin. So the client said, by inspecting this measure, we know this size is 12 pixels. You can check that out. If you inspect this section, the one half, it has a margin right of 12 pixels. So this size here, this space is 12 pixels. How do we play with that? Maybe we could add a margin right of 12 pixels, but that will make this bigger than the container, right? Because the width is 50%, that's 600 pixels, times 2, 1200 pixels, plus 24 pixels is 1224 pixels wide, okay? And we don't want that. We could calculate this and make it maybe smaller. For example, this is a little bit more advanced, but you could use a calc and make some calculations, just normal calculations here. So something like this, maybe, in fact, yeah, this will work, right? Because it will make them 50% of the container minus 12 pixels. So 50% of the container is 600, right? So this will be 588 pixels wide, plus the margin will make them 600, okay? So if we do this, you will see something like this. You are seeing the right margin here, and this one has got a right margin as well, okay? You could play with that if you want, because if we wanted to have that margin, maybe you could make some calculations, have a fixed width with a fixed margin right on this one, and the last one just get rid of the margin right. I will draw something on the blackboard. Let me pause the video. Let's try to do that. So we said they should have, we already calculated that to 594 pixels. They should have this margin right. If we leave it like this, they won't fit, right? Because the final size will be 1212 pixels, right? Do you agree? So they won't fit in the same row, making this one go to the bottom because of the margin, right? So we have to remove that margin right in just the last one. So the last item shouldn't have any right margin. How do we get rid of that margin right? We override it with a margin right 0. And now they should fit inside the container, and they should have this margin here of 12 pixels, okay? If you want to make that bigger, you could play with those numbers. Now later on we won't be using fixed number like this, but it makes sense to, if you are starting to use, I think it's easier to use just fixed math and calculate the numbers like that instead of talking about percentages. But we could use percentages. For example, this could be something like 49% times 2 is 98, right? So if you leave a margin of 2%, that will also work more or less and will be a little bit dynamic, right? So now we have a 2% margin here, and the sizes of these ones are 49% each. So you can also do that if you want to. For now, let's just stick with the pixel fixed units because your homework deals with pixel fixed units as well. And let's move to the next part. We are almost done here, okay? So we have the difficult part, which was the floating, already done. And now let's move to another difficult part, which is positioning this text right where we want them, more or less here, right? So what we are going to do is, now we are going to deal with these boxes inside it, this one too, these full widths, okay? And these full width boxes have inside some image, right? And some H1 and 2. Now, what I want to do is, we already have these boxes there. If you inspect them, let me just move this a little bit to the right and put them there so you get the idea of this. And let me move this a little bit to the bottom. So we have that div that has a class full width. The size of this element is the size of this image plus the size of this H1 with the margins that it has there in light color, plus the H2, and all that will give this box a size. Okay. First, let's take away this H1 from the flow of that box because we don't want that box to grow bigger than the image, right? The box should be the size of the image, and then the text should be on top of that image somewhere. That's where we normally use position absolute. We want to position these two things absolutely related to which box? To this one, right? Remember that? So we can start by telling the one half should have a position declared. Normally we use position relative. That will make, if inside it we start messing with some item in an absolute position, it will make them take into account this half as the container, this box as the container. Okay? So now what we can do is change this H1 and H2. So let's just change them. Did we use one of them here before? I don't know if we use how many H's we use. We do have one here. So I don't know if, but this one also has a position absolute, right? So it won't matter. But let's restrict that to, since we are dealing with these titles, we could restrict them to just the titles and subtitles, or H1s and H2s that live inside a full width box or a half width box, maybe inside a one half. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just select the one half and then select the H1 and select the one half and select the H2s that are inside it. Okay, now what we are going to change in those two is going to change their position to absolute so that we can put them above this image. Okay, we are not going to change the image position. The image will be just there sitting as a relative one, but these H1s are going to be treated as different boxes with a position absolute in front of the full width box that contains them, right? So let's just change this to position absolute, and this one as well. And just by doing that, we remove them from the document flow, remember? So it won't take them into account to grow this box anymore. In fact, they will be somewhere here beneath the image, so we won't be able to see them. Let's try that out. I will just save this and refresh. Okay, so they are not inside between the image. Where are they? So some of them are here. We can look for the rest of them. Class 1 have this one. So if you click on that, okay, it's right there at the bottom. Because they are not aligning to this one full width. Okay, so they are aligning to the one that's 1/2. Okay? So we want them to align inside the full width. Do we have that? No, we don't. So we have a box called full width. We want this H1 and H2 to align inside that box. So we need to specify a position or declare a position in that box as well. So let's just do that before this. It's full width. I think we have them with full width. No, we don't. No, we don't. Okay, so let's create that. Full width. Let's just give it a position relative. Now, the H1 and 2 inside full width will align to this container, to this full width container. So now you can see that they should be beneath the image, each of them. So the first one is there. We should have another one, which is this one. Okay, so right now they are moving at the bottom of the image, but we can start playing with where they are. Okay, so pay attention to this last part. Okay, I'm gonna do it a little bit faster since we are running out of time. But this is what I normally do. Instead of messing around with that, I will just specify or create classes for different positions that I could put inside the boxes. So for example, I could create a bottom center position that's here. I could create a top center that will be around here, or a top right that will live around here. Let me shut that up. Or a center that will be here, just as this one, right? So you can play with that however you want to. Look, the three titles are centered horizontally, right? So the three of them, I mean this one, as well as these two guys, as well as these two, are centered horizontally. So I will create a class. I will name it H for horizontally center. And they will all have it. So this will have that class, this one too, this one and this one, this one and this one. And now I can create that class H center and just center the text inside it. Okay? We won't be able to see them right now, but H1 with class or anything with class H center should have a width of 100% and a text align center. So what I'm doing is growing that headings, that heading 1 to grow to fit its container and make the text inside it align to the center. Again, we won't be able to see them since they are sitting below their containers. Okay, so they are beneath this one. So let's just bring them out with this. So the first one is horizontally centered and vertically aligned to the bottom, right? This one is also horizontally centered and vertically aligned to the bottom. And this one is horizontally centered and vertically aligned to the center as well. Okay, so let's create those classes. These two should be, I will create a new class. I'm just coming up with the names myself. This will be vertically bottom aligned, B bottom. That's the name I'm giving it because I want to. Okay, these two as well have the same class, vertically bottom. And this one should have the class vertically center, right? So we now just have to create this vertically bottom for the H1 and the H2. They are different because we want them to be on different positions. One should be a little bit above the other one. So I will just finish with those classes, okay? So we have an H1 that has a class, or let's create a class vertically bottom. Okay, but they are different from the H1 than from the H2. If we just create that one and assign a bottom value of, let's say, 20 pixels, Now what will happen is that these two texts, both the title and the H1 and the H2, will be aligned on the same position, 20 pixels away from the bottom, right? We don't want to do that. We want maybe the H2 to be at that distance, but maybe we want the H1 to be farther away, maybe 40 pixels away from that. So now we can tell them apart. This is 40 pixels away from the bottom, and this one is 20 pixels away from the bottom. Okay? So now you get the idea. I will just finish the styling. I will inspect the sizes to gain some time. So this one is 32 pixels on size. This one is 13. So the font size is 42 pixels. The font weight is 300. This one, the font size is 13 pixels, and the font weight is 300 as well. So now they start to look more like they should, right? Maybe it's too much, this bottom size. Maybe we make it a little smaller or even smaller. Then that starts to look okay. Okay? Let me just finish. So this is vertically bottom, vertically bottom. Let me just finish the center ones, right? The one that should be here, okay? So I will just copy this, paste it here, and we will have a vertically center and an H2 that is vertically center as well. If I refresh that, they will be right here, okay? But I don't want them there. I want it to be at the center. So instead of having a bottom space, they will have, I don't know, maybe top 50%. If I do that, this will be here. If I do the same for this one, top 50%, they will be here and here, okay? Let's just remove the margins, because I think, yeah, they are having a bunch of margins there that we don't really want to. So they are starting on the same space. I want to move this one a little bit upper and this one a little bit down. So we can play with the transform, translate Y, and maybe this one minus 20 pixels. This will move that one to top. And then this one, transform, translate Y, maybe 10 pixels to the bottom. Okay, maybe a little bit more. And a little bit more, just to be sure that they don't collapse. And now I will just remove the horrible red and blue colors that I added at the beginning. So just give me 1 second. Where's the red one? Here. And now it's starting to come along a little bit better. We still need to have some space here between sections. That's super easy. We could go with each section and have a margin bottom of, let's say, I don't know, 60 pixels. So now we will start, or this will start pushing themselves a little bit away, okay? And now we get more or less what we were looking for. I will stop the video here.